of government in this conversation because the people I'm speaking to are people who get their work in project space, they experiment early warning product, whether it's a seasonal forecast, whether it's a long-term forecast. If it works in pastoral context, what are the opportunities that is there, but we are somehow missing, or we are not getting to the right level to deliver these early warning products to the people who really need the early warning?
I think you can hear me. Yeah?
Yeah.
Great. Thanks for that question, Dr. Guyo. I think it's important to start from lessons, Dr. Guyo. I think it's important to start from lessons in the past. We can genuinely agree that we have had early warning systems on board. Argument about what an effective early warning system must be. It has to be participatory. We need to participatory. We need to speak common language about the major hazards, the priority hazards. And then what are the potential mitigation measures? If we have the same understanding and shared plans, shared mitigation measures with representative of communities, private sector actors, government institutions, and research working across the region, not only Ethiopia, across the Horn of Africa, I think there will be improvements in at least helping people become resilient in the face of global climate change, and particularly the two most important hazards, flood and droughts. Pastoralists have been managing drought, and they have their own early warning indicators. How can we merge that? How can we actually include that knowledge, that human capital, into today's scientific approach? People need to be able to use it. To use it, they need to be able to understand it. So I see different provisions and opportunities today to pursue. Ethiopia had a disaster risk management policy, which provides great steps and procedures for helping people to become resilient in the face of global climate change, particularly droughts, flood, and associated shocks like conflict. So how can we make the participatory disaster risk assessment process work at the local level? There is an understanding at the federal and to some extent at the regional levels in Ethiopia, but stakeholders need to take that to scale across the grassroots level, so that there is a participatory disaster risk assessment process. And then surely the major hazards will be drought. I think having this system work at the grassroots level is very important, and at the same time, it's also important to have, inclusive strategies and policies that can help the region, support disaster risk management, early warning system initiatives. For example, livestock are their major assets, and associated to that is animal feed. Brings us to the rangelands, the grazing areas, the communal nations. So, for example, the participatory rangeland management approach that I think IGAD is also pursuing, planning sustainable actions, which can also be planning systems followed by early preparedness and early action. If I can have some time, let me talk about so far in the IGAD region, to have a pastoral development policy. This recognizes the cross-border nature of pastoralism. It recognizes the livelihood system of dryland communities and supports cross-border development initiatives. So I think that's a very good opportunity we can pursue in planning and designing our pastoral development interventions in the future, including making them cross-border. There is a current initiative by the Ethiopian government. In Amharic, they call it Tarajinet or Amrachinet. It literally means from being food recipients to becoming producers. This is led by the party itself, the ruling party. So this is actually this aims to drastically reduce the beneficiary, the safety net beneficiaries, by making interventions extension and market oriented. So this is an opportunity where we can also mainstream our early warning system, disaster risk reduction interventions. So the policy alignment is very important. The IGAD transhumance protocol, which Ethiopia has signed, we are going to ratify it. We have started the ratification process. Early next year, we're going to have this protocol ratified by Ethiopia, allowing for an orderly and safe movement of people and livestock, and hopefully in the future, it would be a foundation for regional integration and collaboration in sustainable development.
Okay, thank you very much for the very powerful submission. I think I'll come to Hussein, and I think Hussein, your question is, you'll be working with pastoralists as a researcher from our days as a PhD student in Germany. You established a center, and I think you're the most suitable person to speak from the pastoralist. This early warning thing that we're discussing, in the face of climate change, as much as you're the proponent of the indigenous knowledge, we're also cognizant that the system of pastoralists have been overstretched by the magnitude of the shock. So my question is, what can we do realistically for pastoralists in the face of these shocks?
Okay, thank you, Guyo. Before answering this question, I would like to reiterate that pastoralists still run their affairs based on remarkable sets of knowledge that are gotten from observation and their own knowledge systems, which still support them, and that is our starting point. When we talk about issues that around climate, anticipatory action, early action, from their own observation, for example, on issues around weather and climate, looking at various indicators, some livestock-based, some based on vegetation, others based even on wild animal behaviors, pastoralists plan, they anticipate. For example, whether there are droughts or whether seasons are good or bad. So when you look at this, there's some basic things that pastoralists do that we should not overlook. One of the key things that I advocate for is the basic practice of mobility. A lot of people, when they look at mobility, they look at mobility from the perspective that it's the limitation or the limited resources that make pastoralists move. In the right sense, actually, pastoralists move because they take advantage of the variability that is there in the rangelands. Rainfall variability brings about variability in further occurrences in space and time. And this is one key thing that when we talk about anticipatory action, when we talk about early warning, that we need to look at. So my basic take is, if we want to support them, one of the things is what has been said already. I hear quite a bit of interruption in my headset. One of the things that has been said in the science of it, and even in how it is being transmitted. But still, when you look at from the ground, the integration of what pastoralists observe and see as important is not going into, what the climate scientists produce as advisories. And this needs to change. The other thing is the variability that we have. We have, for example, warning for districts, for example, and we really need to go down to, can we go down to Sabati? It is key. I haven't seen, in my experience in northern Kenya, any support for pastoralist mobility directly, like helping pastoralists be able to move. Can we help them, anticipate and move? Can we help them to negotiate, because things have changed also. They used to have very good negotiation ways among themselves, but because of social, political changes, these negotiations, and also because of, boundaries that have been set by governments, these negotiations do not always happen in the same way and in the same level of, things as they used to do. The other element that which is land. Land is their main productive asset. For them to, once they get the information, for them to act, if they don't have secure rights to land, then that becomes a challenge. Within the climate debate, or within even our mitigation adaptation measures, we are developing, other resources in the rangelands. For example, green energy is one element that is really coming up. Wind farms, solar panels, taking chunks of land out of, pastoral production system. While on one hand, we are trying to address the global climate effects, on the other hand, this limits what pastoralists can do in their respective context. And also, with the buzz around resilience building, we have seen a lot of interventions that come in, and some interventions that are undertaken compromises the practices by pastoralist communities. For instance, we talk about small-scale irrigation, that takes away land that are prime for grazing and key resources being taken away. So even in that, we talk about small-scale irrigation,
So tell us what is in it for pastoralists in that irrigation, in very brief way.
I just want to start from my own career path. I've been in pastoral lowland areas for a long time. And when I joined the Ministry of Irrigation and Lowlands, irrigation and lowland, these two things were not compatible, as experience tells us. But the government of Ethiopia, cognizant of the potential in the lowlands of Ethiopia, were able to have this new executive organ to coordinate all irrigation. Irrigation is at the national level. You can divide lowlands into two. One is the moisture deficient lowlands. Moisture deficient, moisture stressed lowland, the moisture sufficient lowlands. These are located mostly in the western part of the country. The moisture deficient are where we have our rangelands, the vast rangelands of Ethiopia and Horn of Africa. So in the moisture deficient lowlands, we have perennial. I think this can be incredible resources to help pastoralism become resilient in the face of drought, frequent droughts. How can that be possible? Pastoralism is mainly livestock dependent economy, but as the Ethiopian Pastoral Development Policy clearly states, it has two pillars. The first pillar supports the reciprocal resource management. The other one supports diversified livelihoods. One is purely livestock dependent, but this one is diversified livelihood opportunities for pastoralist community. This is where irrigation comes in at the potential to ensure additional asset, additional capital for pastoralist communities who, the experience is very interesting. When you diversify a pastoralist community's livelihood, they get income. As soon as they get his livelihood, they get income. As soon as they get income, they will invest back into livestock, into pastoralism. So this shows that pastoralism is a viable production system, but at the same time, infrastructure is condition. So I think based on clear planning, clear design, we can make irrigation further and become resilient in the face of global climate change.
Okay, thank you very much. I think before I come to the floor, I have one question for my colleague, Linda. Even in my village, if I ask people to text me, they don't text me, they have to speak to me. It shows how oral they are. Why don't we have an oral product for pastoralists? Like today, in the end of my grazing area, is that a near possibility or I'm just dreaming?
When it comes to dissemination of information to end users, that's largely, usually we developed an app called Husika that governments can use to even be able to disseminate this information to people who cannot read. So we do have voice SMSs. A lot of people, radio is one. Radio especially, we've done a lot in the region in terms of trying to sensitize journalists on climate information, climate terminologies, so they can then use that and break it down to the people that they communicate with better. So usually we encourage, can we go to a different expertise from the livestock,